Persian Chance, Home Studio X, and this is American stealth bomber strike Iran's nuclear facilities. But on Sandbox, been waiting for this one. When Sandbox gonna talk about B-2 bomber using GBU MOP bombs. What is it called? Massive Ordnance Penetrator. There you go. Bunker busters. So when Iran, USA used bunker busters on Iran just like 2 or so day, 48 hours ago. I was like, okay, Sandbox gonna make video about this. I hope he does it fast. This is faster. It's like 48 hours. Like, yeah, it's gonna be interesting because he has to gather all the information. He's gonna talk about, I'm guessing, all the operational detail, like how they did it, how it was all done. Because so far we just like getting like kind of information. So videos from Sandbox is always gonna be interesting. Let's do this one.
2 days ago, the United States Air Force carried out the largest stealth bomber airstrike in history, with 7 B-2 Spirits dropping 14 of the largest bunker-busting bombs ever built on 2 of Iran's most heavily protected nuclear facilities. Now, despite contradicting claims made all across social media, it's still too early to know for sure just how effective these strikes were in crippling Iran's long-term ambitions to develop and field nuclear weapons. But even with some uncertainty looming, there's really no denying that this mission was an immense operational success, and even a downright scary reminder of just how capable American air power really can be when let off its leash. This offensive involved the coordination of more than 125 aircraft, ranging from decoy bombers sent out over the Pacific, tankers refilling aircraft in near range.
What insane part is that these planes took off from mainland USA all the way to Iran in just one go. I don't know, like you hear about this, you get these stats in videos, but when you really see it, when you really see that in operation, it's just like terrifying thing, right? Because range is one of those things like you just don't think about that way. When you see like actions like god damn, like all the way from US mainland to Iran and back, it's like that is such a flex. It's like it's insanity completely.
Radio silence, spy planes, electronic warfare assets, 2 generations of fighter aircraft, and a whole lot more.
What?
All bolstered by a precisely coordinated Tomahawk missile strike launched from America's uniquely capable Ohio-class guided missile submarines.
They use the fleet, all the jammers and spy planes and all that shit. I mean, yeah, they would use it, right? Like, this is so good.
Hundreds of miles away. And while the decision to conduct this strike was a politically controversial one, the mission, dubbed Operation Midnight Hammer, is sure to be studied by military scholars and pilots in training.
I like that name, Midnight Hammer. Why hammer? Because it's literally just, like chunk of weight. That's how the bomb works. It's literally heavy weight thing that penetrates it. So it's like dropping a hammer.
For years to come. So let's talk about why. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is Air Power.
It's insane to me. I'm pausing too much. It's insane to me that only America is like, okay, wait a minute. People run into bunkers. What are we supposed to do? You know what? Let's make bunker busters. They did that with Iraq and they just like keep making it better and better. Only US can do this with a B-2 bomber. That's insane.
A recent Wall Street Journal report alleges that much of America's interest in UFOs, or UAPs as they're now known, was born out of a deliberate disinformation campaign conducted by the US military. I've been staying on top of this story with Ground News. Ground News is an aggregator that collects our...
Yeah, well, go to ground.news/sandbox and support this channel or QR code or go to original video page link.
Will help you stay on top of things. At 1 minute after midnight on Saturday morning, the first in a large formation of B-2 Spirit stealth bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, with seemingly
from Missouri to Iran.
9 bombers involved. This single formation represented some $20 billion worth of aircraft, though the formation itself would split immediately after takeoff, with two B-2s reportedly heading west out over the Pacific with their transponders active, making it possible for the world to track what appeared to be the repositioning of these bombers out to Guam in advance of future strikes, or maybe as a bit of geopolitical theater to apply additional pressure to the Iranian regime. But the other 7 stealth bombers, flying with their transponders off and with minimal communications between them, headed east instead.
See, if Iran was like China or some major power like that, like I don't know if India has it or India, China or something like that, they would have satellites, they would have like advanced radars and everything, they would have detected something moving or something, right? Maybe. But then again, these are B-2 bombers, like you can't really detect them, can you? So it's like how you fight against this shit. 2 went to Guam. They announced, oh, it's at Guam as a smoke screen. 7 of them went over Atlantic, but you can't really detect them because they are B-2 bombers. This is a flex of whole other kind.
Now, the B-2 Spirit is widely recognized for its extreme low observability, which would certainly be a very important factor in this mission. But there was another reason why these exotic flying wings were chosen for this specific job. But before I dive into that, I want to give you my standard disclaimer for these types of news stories. I know that the decision to strike Iran was a politically controversial one, but we're not going to discuss the politics here or make any kinds of moral or ethical judgments. Instead,
see, the whole point of having a president is that sometimes you can't bog down with politics and people's opinion. You have to act. That's why you have president. That's why there are 3 arms. Public arm with the Senate and Congress, federal arm with the president at top, and like a law arm with the Supreme Court and everything. All major countries, probably like all democratic countries have that. India has it in like all, yeah, I'm pretty sure Britain, I don't know how Britain monarchy thing works, but yeah. So this is how that shit works. So if you just get bogged down with Congress and how people feel, you don't make decisions when you have to, and your enemies could use that against you. So there is an element of like, yeah, president have certain freedom to do shit because you elected him, right? You can like elect somebody else 4 years from now, that type of shit. So yeah, obviously people don't like it, but yeah, president can do that. And he didn't just do that like, oh fuck it, I'm gonna do this. A lot of military generals and experts, people who've been generals for decades now, gave Trump their opinion. And that's how Trump made his decision. Trump didn't just come up with like, okay, we're doing this. Shit would go, left and right if that would be the case. No, they go to operation room and they talk with this, top level generals and people who like, yeah, this is feasible. We should do this. And then Trump do it. So it's not completely like, oh, Trump is doing that. It's like a political issue. Military generals would have, said doing this to if someone else was in power, like Biden or something. They would have said the same thing.
Our focus is going to be placed squarely on the military operation, how it was conducted, and what it might mean moving forward. So, the B-2 is the only aircraft on the planet that's capable of deploying the largest bunker buster known to mankind, a massive 30,000-pound class weapon.
Oh. Okay, what? Why are you using this chart? Wait a minute, what? You have a nuclear bomb as a bunker buster? This is why Trump was saying like nuclear weapons are not off the table. I'm guessing he was referring this one because it's a bunker buster. So you made a nuclear bomb that is a bunker buster. Makes sense. Why not? Like it's the most power, like from invention of TNT, right? Done by the scientist Nobel, right? That's why the Nobel Prize exists. The invention of TNT, since that only thing we made that is like really powerful is a nuclear bomb. That's the jump. Everything else is kind of like TNT but like amplified. Nuclear bomb is literally fission and fusion. It's like atomic fuckery, let's just say. So yeah, you would use nuclear bomb because that's like amplifying, but you can't use nuclear bomb because yeah, people will be like, you use nuke. So I don't know why. What is the point of even creation of this? But yeah, GBU-57. This is the one they used. Massive ordnance penetrator. Look at the size of it. Look at the human here, the soldier, and look at the fucking size of it. 30,000 pounds. Like, damn, 15 ton. That's insane. This is the one they used in Iraq, I'm gonna guess. I don't know. The first one, right? I don't know.
1,000-pound class weapon encased in a solid ferro-cobalt alloy that's more than 3 inches thick in places, with a solid tungsten nose designed to rip through hundreds of feet of steel reinforced.
Yeah, so it just by tungsten, because it's like tungsten is has the highest melting point, so it doesn't burn off, right? I'm guessing that's the case.
Concrete before detonating more than 5,300 pounds of explosives housed inside. And this explosive payload was designed specifically for bunker busting applications. Upon detonation, each of these bombs releases roughly the same explosive power as some 265 Hellfire missiles.
Yeah, there are people who said, like, why are we not using bunker buster in like ballistic missile as a ballistic missile? I'm like, physics. You might reach, and not might, you probably will reach at that size. High speed collision, as it says in physics. In physics terms, high speed collision, which means the like momentum speed, right? The momentum energy is such a high energy, right? That when it touches anything, when it collides with something, the energy of that would be much higher than the atomic energy that it is binding it. I don't know why I'm hard time saying things. The atomic energy that binds the thing, the metal atomic energy, would be lesser than the momentum energy. What is it called? Like kinetic energy. Why do I have a hard time saying that? Kinetic energy. So kinetic energy would be much higher than its atomic bond. So as soon as it touches something, it would just instantly explode. You wouldn't be able to penetrate it, would you? That's how asteroids create those round holes on moon. Doesn't matter which angle it hits, it is always perfect round because it's not really hitting it. As soon as it touches it, it explodes like a bomb. That's how energy, that's how physics work. So you can't make a ballistic, like a bunker buster because the energy would be much higher. You want it to penetrate. That would be like that thing that they were thinking about. What is it? A rod from God or something? Just dropping rods as a ballistic thing. Just the energy enough would be too much. Like, you don't need bomb for it.
Combined. Now, this weapon's official designation, you may already know, is the GBU-57 MOP, short for Massive Ordnance Penetrator. And until this week, it had never been used in combat, at least as far as we know. Now, the US Air Force, notorious for underreporting the maximum capabilities of its aircraft, and its weapons for that matter, says the B-2 Spirit is capable of carrying a very respectable 40,000-pound payload. But as these 7 bombers crept across the Atlantic sky under cover of both darkness and near radio silence, they each carried 2 of the world's biggest bunker busters, or just shy of 60,000 pounds of steel-reinforced explosive power, which really just goes to show that you shouldn't believe everything you read on the internet. Now, technically speaking, the B-2 has enough range to fly all the way to Iran from Missouri without needing to refuel, but in reality, with these massive payloads on board, these aircraft needed to be refueled multiple times, which meant all 7 bombers linking up with KC-135 or KC-46 tanker aircraft along pre-planned points throughout this globe-spanning route. With secrecy at a premium, communications between the bombers and the tankers were even kept at a minimum. And after about 17 hours in the air, this covert multi-billion-dollar bomber formation crossed into the domain of US CENTCOM, or the United States Central Command. Now, CENTCOM is one of 11 combatant commands the United States maintains all.
Okay, it is insane that only India, China, Japan, all that. Yeah, no, wait a minute, that is part of it. Like US, Indo-PACOM. What? Yeah, that is. I'm like, why is it no India? No, there's a blue thing. Okay. So yeah, they have these capabilities that can span the whole land mass. Like, they can control it, like radars and everything. This is the logistics I'm talking about. Like, can China and anyone compete with this shit? Come on. Look at this, right? Even they have the Pacific one, because why the fuck not? Here you go. barely few islands there, but yeah, they even have that because obvious reasons. That was a big issue with World War II thing. So yeah, of course they're gonna have that. But look at this. So they can like really micromanage the shit out of this. Like how can you compete with this one?
Around the world, and CENTCOM is specifically tasked with overseeing more than 4 million square miles of territory, encompassing some 21 nations and parts of 3 continents. But throughout much of the past few decades, CENTCOM is often primarily known as the command element overseeing American and often allied operations throughout the Middle East. And this weekend was no different. Shortly after
Most
crossing
active
the
one.
threshold into CENTCOM's area of responsibility,
CENTCOM is the most active one, I'm guessing, because always some shit is happening in Middle East when it comes to USA compared to anything else. But European com, whatever that is, what are they doing? Like just sitting there doing nothing. Same thing with the Indocom, because like apart from North Korea, like who's your enemy there? India is a democratic country; it's never an issue, right? Everyone else, Japan is like US is like who? Like I'm only North Korea, so they are like sitting there just like eating like peanuts and shit. Like this is getting boring, man.
those 7 B-2 bombers were joined by 4th and 5th generation fighter escorts flying out further ahead. Now, exactly what fighters were involved in these operations has yet to be disclosed, but it stands to reason that air
F-35s.
superiority focused F-22 Raptors and electronic warfare aircraft like the Navy's EA-18G Growlers were all but certainly among them. And to that very
F-22s were there. It's like they were like this is like one of those montage shit, right? Like some like everybody just like with the gang just walking out like VB2, there's F-22s like circling them. Oh shit! Imagine the sight. Like F-22 is basically untouchable, right? B2s are like heavy ass bombers are coming behind. Like damn, how you gonna fight that shit?
very point, a contingent of 12 U.S. Air Force F-22s, widely considered to be the most capable air superiority fighters on the planet, relocated to Jordan in the Middle East from RAF Lakenheath just days before the offensive began, along with several more F-35As and both KC-135 and more modern KC-46 tankers. Likewise, the USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group positioned itself off the Iranian coast in the Arabian Sea, placing both longer-ranged F-35Cs and again, those electronic warfare-focused EA-18G Growlers within striking distance of the bombers' target areas. As the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, U.S. Air Force General Dan Kane put it, the bombers, quote, linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms and a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communications. This type of integration is exactly what our joint force does.
Why the fuck would you have communication? We know that we do this shit. We've done too many exercises. Like it's time to go, man. Let's go. It's time to cook. That's what they thought. All that. After it was like, yeah, is it time? Are we gonna shine this time? No, we just escort. Okay.
Better than anyone else in the world. And deep beneath the waves of the Arabian Sea, one of America's unique Ohio-class guided missile submarines was also sailing into position. Now, these subs began their service lives as ballistic missile submarines, tasked with carrying America's last resort arsenal of nuclear weapons. But back between 2002 and 2008, 4 of these boomers, as they're often called, were converted for non-nuclear duties and had vertical launch systems installed to instead employ a massive complement of 154 conventionally armed Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles. As the bombers and fighters approached Iran's western border, the submarine launched at least 30 of these Tomahawks. Now, these weapons are powered by air-breathing turbofan engines, just like a tactical aircraft, allowing them to cover distances of greater than 1,000 miles while flying at relatively low altitudes, allowing them to mask their approach behind the curvature of the Earth and even the local terrain. With a cruising speed of...
Hold up there, like, yeah, don't you have like a stealth cruise missiles? Like what is it, like French Scalp and Hammer, one of them is stealth cruise missile, right? That is you do have stealth cruise missiles, so why are you using Tomahawks? Or is it like we don't need to use stealth? Is that what was the case? I don't know.
around 570 miles per hour and hundreds of miles to cover to reach their targets in Isfahan, the timing of these launches had to be extremely precise to make sure that these missiles didn't reach their targets before the bombers reached theirs, and thus tipping Iranian defenses off about the operation. The Tomahawks were headed for key surface infrastructure targets at Isfahan, Iran's largest atomic science and uranium conversion facility, while the bombers closed with the hardened subterranean bunkers of Iran's uranium enrichment facilities at Natanz and Fordo further north. Both of these facilities were built deep underground to prevent bunker-busting munitions from being able to reach them before being blanketed in the most robust.
Yeah, we are so deep, no bunker buster can reach us. How about 12 of them? One after another, penetrating deeper and deeper. How about that? That's what USA did here.
Air defenses Iran could muster. But after Israel's offensive into Iran last week utterly decimated the nation's entire air defense apparatus, it seems the American aircraft faced very little in the way of interference. Nonetheless, heavy jamming was reported throughout Iran as the strike package traversed its airspace. And just before arriving over the target location, American fighters launched what General Kane described as, quote, high-speed suppression weapons to mitigate any air defense systems that might come online during their approach. Now, these weapons were more likely than not radar hunting AGM-88E advanced anti-radiation guided missiles, or AARGMs for short. These weapons carry an anti-radiation seeker that's capable of picking up and closing with the broadcasting electromagnetic radiation, or the radar waves used by air defense systems for targeting. But unlike older radar hunting missiles, these weapons also carry GPS-assisted inertial navigation and a millimeter wave radar seeker. So if the enemy powers down their radar array, the weapon can continue to close with its last known position. And as it approaches that position, if the enemy tries to pack up and relocate, the radar seeker makes it possible to even close with moving targets. Now, just before impact, these weapons transmit an image of their target back to the launching aircraft, making it possible to assess whether or not you have successfully mitigated the anti-air risk or not in real time. Now, with a maximum range of 60 miles, these weapons actually aren't even the latest and greatest radar hunting missiles that Uncle Sam has in his arsenal. With the newer AARGM ER, that ER denoting extended range, reaching initial operating capability with the Navy just a few months ago, and boasting the ability to strike targets roughly twice as far away at 120 miles or so. But it's currently unclear whether these weapons have completed integration testing with the Navy Super Hornets or its Growlers. And to be perfectly honest, they likely weren't even necessary for engaging Iran's degraded air defense network at this point. Now, regardless, these missiles were all but certainly launched without any specific targets in mind, and instead, the weapons were sent out to scan the area ahead of the strike package for enemy radar arrays that might be waiting to power up until the American aircraft were in range. Now, it's unclear whether these weapons did find targets to destroy or not, but American officials have stated that Iran didn't manage to launch a single missile at these bombers or their fighter escorts throughout the approach. Then, at roughly 2
They don't blow it up, they just like penetrate it, that's it, like I guess damage done, why not?
10 a.m. local time, and after more than 18 hours in the air, the lead B-2 Spirit in the formation opened its massive payload bay doors and dropped both of those gigantic GBU-57s at very specific targets on the ground over Iran's subterranean Fordo facility. Now, dropped from high altitude, these 30,000-pound weapons ripped into the earth, penetrating what was probably more than 100 feet of rock and soil before detonating. Now, Fordo's massive 54,000 square foot subterranean bunker is believed to house some 3,000 centrifuges used in the nuclear enrichment process, but at an estimated depth of somewhere between.
All right, that I think I've seen the images of like there are 6 holes there in that in that mountain, implying that they've worked really well, because otherwise they would have blown up the top part of it. No, it was just holes, so they blew up inside. So yeah, That shit is probably like it was probably calculated by military. So chances of like it destroying the base is pretty high. Unless Iran deliberately somehow made sure that only thing people know of is like where the facility is not a right number. It was probably more deeper. They could have done that somehow. I don't know. Like they could have leaked intelligence that is fake or something. But the facility is much more deeper. Like that would be something.
260 and 300 feet below ground, it's pretty unlikely that even the massive GBU 57 could reach it, at least not on the first try. Immediately after the first bomber dropped its payload, a second bomber followed suit, dropping two more 30,000-pound bunker busters, and then another, striking 6 specifically chosen locations on the Earth above the Fordo complex with pinpoint accuracy. But that was just the beginning.
If they use 12, so they use 2 per, right? How would that penetrate deep enough? Like, don't you need to like throw multiple bombs at same place so they dig deeper and deeper?
Then 3 more B-2s dropped another 6 weapons directly into the holes produced by that first wave, penetrating all the way into the hardened facility before detonating a combined 27,540 pounds of a propellant-like plastic explosive that was developed specifically to maximize its blast energy output.
Yeah, to me it's insane that how a plane dropped a missile, a bomb, with a pinpoint accuracy can go into the same hole, the same diameter hole that was made by the diameter of the missile itself, and like pinpoint accuracy go inside. That's the technology that's insane.
4 bunker busting applications. As these bombs tore through Iran's most protected nuclear site, the strike force headed south for Natanz as the Navy's Tomahawks closed in on Isfahan. The last 2 GBU-57s carried by the bombers were dropped on Natanz just minutes after the strikes on Fordo. And with a single large crater now visible in satellite imagery, it seems likely that these 2 bunker busters also penetrated through the same hole for maximum depth. Finally, with Fordo and Natanz struck, the Tomahawks made landfall in Isfahan, ending the strikes and leaving America's 7 bombers and their 14 crew members
insane.
with nothing but a 17-plus hour flight home left to overcome. Now, all of these strikes across Iran were carried out in less than 25 minutes. And in a subsequent press conference, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stressed that these strikes were, quote, not open-ended, as he put it, meaning the United States accomplished its goals of sufficiently degrading Iran's nuclear facilities and does not intend to continue combat operations against the embattled.
Yeah, and people always say like, "Oh, America's lying. This is like Iraq thing. Weapons of mass destruction type of shit. Iran wasn't like like making nuclear bomb. The level of enrichment they were doing. Only reason to do that is if you're gonna make bomb, right? Like this. People are like, oh, but you can't be sure. Like, what are we in court? What do you mean you can't be sure? That's good enough. That intent is good enough. Everybody knows if you're enriching at that level, you're trying to make a bomb. That's the stigma that is out there. So Iran should have known it. Even if they were not making bomb, they should have known it. Like if we are enriching this level, everybody will assume we are making nuclear bombs. So at that point, it's justified, right? You can't just like, oh, you need an absolute videographic proof where they point blank admit we are making nuclear bomb. Like, what are you, high? Who's stupid enough to do that? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, this is a way extreme left side wing. I've seen people making this argument. Like, what are you even talking about, man? If you want to make power plant, you don't enrich uranium at this level. Only reason to do that if you were trying to make a bomb. So come on, man. At this point, like this is enough. It's like type of thing. Like you can't go inside the cave to see if there's a bear or not. So you put like white dust in outside of the cave and wait for long enough time. If you don't notice feet, there is no bear there. If you do notice feet, there's definitely bear there. Throw a grenade inside. You don't have to go inside and check it, because that would be suicide. What are you talking about? We're going to wait for the perfect confirmation. Until then, it might be too late. You might be bombed. Like, this is how military works. What are you talking about?
Nation. That is, unless Iran retaliates toward American troops or other interests in the coming days.
Yeah, they did.
But to be clear, it still might be too early to say the job's entirely done. Since the strikes, Israeli officials have stated that Fordo was indeed extensively damaged, but likely wasn't entirely destroyed. Likewise, there remains concerns that Iran may have relocated its stockpile of enriched uranium, or even some of its centrifuges prior to the strikes, which could allow Iran to continue toward fielding nuclear weapons and hiding somewhere else in the country. But
yeah, but you have million satellites with the satellite imagery, like you have Hubble-like fucking thing that is pointing down. Like, why can't you like see what is the movement and shit?
claims you may have seen flooding onto social media about the strikes being a failure are just as premature. In fact, I'd argue they're even less based in reality. It's clear looking at the satellite images of the area.
America failed. Like armchair people just suddenly jumps up. Like, I even have like a lot of like people like that in the comments, like just point blank. That you can clearly see extreme bias on their side, and this is point blank. Like they attack me because they think I'm saying pro something. I'm not pro anything. Like I'm reacting to like all this shit. I'm not at either side. I'm like, I'm the side of right and morality. I always try to choose that way. But people just always assume and just attack me. Like, really? It's like, I don't care what you say, man. Shut up. So, that's social media. Oh, there was a failure. How do you know? Yeah, that's how I feel. Okay, shut up then.
Around Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan that these strikes were very effective at creating extensive damage throughout these facilities. And that damage is all but certainly enough to, quote, significantly degrade Iran's ability to continue building nuclear weapons. The question ultimately is just how long will these strikes set the Iranian regime back? And that's the part that we'll need a much more robust battle damage assessment to work out. But to tell you the truth, whether or not these strikes mark the end of America's involvement in this fight or just the beginning is still very much up in the air. And at least for now, it's all about waiting to see what Iran does next. And with that ends this edition of Air Power.
Yep, that was really awesome. Like I didn't know like they use so many like growlers and like F-22s and shit. This is why I was waiting for Sandbox video. Is that the logistic is insane. I mean, you hear about this all the time, like training access and shit. They actually used it in real life this time. Proper MOP bomb, first time used. B2s like seared through. Yeah, before B-21 becomes a thing and B2 is like retired, they're seeing use. And just like even now, this plane is multi-decade old and still like what the fuck. Imagine how insane B-21 is gonna be. And that thing, man, that nuclear bunker buster, isn't that like risky? Why do I say that's risky? Because hydrogen bombs, thermonuclear bombs, they require fission bombs as a trigger because you need that heat. So if there are like stockpiles of like thermonuclear bombs inside the mountain, you use that nuclear bunker buster as soon as it goes off. What if that triggers the thermonuclear bomb? Because that's how thermonuclear bombs get triggered. Isn't that a catastrophe? I don't know, man. You need to have like perfect intel if you're ever going to use that shit. Alright, well, that was American stealth bomber strike Iran's nuclear facilities by channel Sandbox. If you like my next one, subscribe and yeah, I'll see you next time.